There's a strange feeling a lot of responsible people experience, but rarely talk about. You do everything right. You avoid debt. You save regularly. You choose stability over risk. And yet, your life still feels financially tight. Not chaotic, not irresponsible, just heavy. You look around and notice something unsettling. The people who seem to be enjoying life more, traveling, upgrading apartments, driving newer cars, often aren't the ones making the right financial decisions. And quietly, in the back of your mind, a question starts forming. If I'm doing the smart thing, why does it feel like I'm falling behind? This is not a motivation problem. It's not a discipline problem, and it's not because you're bad with money. It's something far more subtle. It's what we'll call the good decision tax. Let's talk about someone you probably recognize. Maybe it's you, or a friend, or a version of you from a few years ago. They're in their mid-20s or early 30s. They live in the US, UK, Germany, France. It doesn't really matter. They have a stable job, nothing flashy, just reliable. They earn enough to cover rent, utilities, food, transport, and maybe put a little aside each month. They don't chase trends, they don't gamble, they don't overspend on status. When a big purchase comes up, a car, a phone, a vacation, they hesitate, they compare options, they think long-term. And because of that, their life looks quieter. They're not broke, but they're not free either. Now here's the part that messes with your head. Their coworker, same age, similar income, lives very differently. They finance the car, they upgrade apartments sooner, they take trips and post photos. And month to month, they look richer. That contrast creates a psychological pressure that numbers alone can't explain. The good decision tax is not a literal tax. No government is charging it. It's a temporary reduction in visible lifestyle that comes from choosing stability, margin, and optionality over immediate comfort. And here's the key idea most people miss. Good financial decisions often make your life feel worse before they make it better. Not dramatically worse, just subtly worse. Less excitement, more restraint, more waiting. And humans are not wired to tolerate delayed rewards very well, especially when everyone around them seems to be cashing in now. Let's look at something simple. Imagine two people earning the same salary. One spends close to their limit every month. The other leaves a small buffer, savings, investments, emergency cash. On paper, the difference might be just a few $100s or euros a month, but psychologically, the spender feels lighter, more expressive, more alive. The saver feels constrained, not because saving is painful, but because restraint has no visible reward in the present moment. No one compliments your emergency fund, no one notices your low debt, no one claps for your boring consistency. But the bills still need to be paid, and the sacrifices still feel real. That's the tax. Most people don't abandon good financial habits because they suddenly become irresponsible. They quit because the emotional return feels negative. They think, I've been doing this for years and nothing has changed. I'm still stressed. I'm still not free. Maybe this just isn't worth it. So they loosen the rules. A little more lifestyle inflation, a little more debt, a little less saving. Nothing dramatic. And for a while, life improves. That's the dangerous part. Here's where basic math quietly takes over. Debt doesn't hurt much at first. It hurts later. Saving doesn't help much at first. It helps later. But humans experience time emotionally, not mathematically. A $500 monthly car payment feels manageable today, but over 5 years, that's $30,000 before interest. Skipping investing in your 20s doesn't feel painful, but losing compound growth doesn't show up until your 30s and 40s. The problem isn't that people don't understand this. It's that the feedback loop is broken. The cost is delayed, the reward is delayed, but the discomfort is immediate. So people respond rationally to how it feels, not to what it does. There's another layer here. Comparison. In the US and Europe especially, lifestyle signals are everywhere. Cars, apartments, vacations, technology. And we subconsciously measure our progress against what we can see. But what you see is consumption, not stability. You don't see who's one emergency away from panic, who's stuck in payments they can't escape, who has zero flexibility if life changes. So, responsible people often conclude something quietly devastating. I must be doing something wrong. When in reality, they're just early. Here's the mindset shift that changes everything. Financially intelligent people don't measure success by how their life looks month to month. They measure it by how fragile or flexible their life is. They ask different internal questions. Not, can I afford this payment? But, what does this remove from my future options? Not, will this make life easier right now? But, does this increase or decrease pressure on my future self? They understand something very unglamorous, but very powerful. Money is not primarily for buying things. It's for buying time, margin, and control. And those don't show up on Instagram. Here's the part that almost no one talks about. If you stick with responsible decisions long enough, something subtle shifts. Not overnight, not dramatically, but gradually. The emergency doesn't destabilize you. The job change isn't terrifying. The expense doesn't create panic. While others feel squeezed by commitments they made years ago, you feel less reactive. That's when the tax stops increasing and starts paying dividends. But most people never reach that point. They quit right before it matters. This tax feels heavier now than it did for previous generations. Costs are higher, housing is tighter, wages grow slower than expenses. So the reward for responsibility is delayed even further. That makes patience feel irrational. But the math hasn't changed. Only the noise has. And the louder the noise, the harder it is to trust quiet strategies. Here's a calmer way to think about it. If your life feels a little underwhelming because you're being careful, that doesn't mean you're failing. It means you're absorbing the cost early instead of paying it later with interest. You're not behind, you're buffering. And buffering doesn't feel exciting. It feels boring, which is exactly why it works. The good decision tax is real. It makes responsible people question themselves. It makes patience feel stupid. And it makes quitting tempting. But it's not a sign that your approach is broken. It's a sign that you're still in the part of the timeline where discipline feels heavier than freedom. Most people never make it past this phase, not because they're lazy, but because the rewards are invisible until they're suddenly very real. If this video helped you see that tension more clearly and understand why it exists, then it's probably worth staying curious about how money actually works beneath the surface. You can subscribe if you want more calm, realistic thinking like this. That's all.